Today, we're really digging into some complex, very important issues unfolding in the Middle East. We're going to look at the surprising reasons behind that recent ceasefire between Israel and Iran, tackle the really dire situation in Gaza that doesn't always get fully covered, and then talk about a critical shift in U.S. war powers. A pretty alarming one, actually. And just so you know, all the insights, the facts we're sharing today, they come straight from Militaire Cole, Daniel Davis's latest YouTube video. It's a really informed take that helps make sense of, well, a lot of this chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. And our goal here really is just to cut through all the noise, give you the core insights from that analysis, help you understand not just what's going on, but why it's significant.
Yeah.
So you can quickly get a solid grasp on these huge geopolitical shifts.
Okay, let's dive in then. I mean, we've got decades of this intense hostility, right? Threats back and forth between Iran and Israel. So what on earth leads to a sudden ceasefire? It seems so out of the blue. What was really driving that pause?
Well, what LT Colin Davis really hammers home is just profound exhaustion on both sides. Despite all that history, he says they were just plain beat up.
Beat up.
Yeah. And it was a great time to end it, is how he put it. Their focus wasn't grand strategy, not even nuclear stuff right then. It was way more basic. They were, just trying to live, just survive the immediate mess.
Wow. It's kind of wild to think that even with all the, the deep-seated hate, as he mentions, just being worn out becomes the common ground, even if it's temporary. And that brings us to Israel. I mean, for years, decades even, their stated goal was complete destruction of Iran. They pushed Trump, they pushed Biden on it. So why the sudden shift? Why agree to stop now?
Because this recent clash, it really exposed some surprising vulnerabilities for Israel. Things maybe they didn't expect. Their whole integrated air defense shield, the Iron Dome, David's Sling, Arrow, 3AD, Patriot systems, all that stuff. It got heavily gashed. It was exposed.
Oh, okay.
It turns out it wasn't this impervious shield everyone claimed it was.
So not quite the impenetrable bubble we often hear about. That does change things.
Completely. The evidence showed Iran could keep up a steady state of a decent number of daily rockets and missiles heading into Israel. And the key thing, Israel could only intercept a portion of them.
Only a portion.
Right. The rest. They caused tremendous damage. He mentions major research facilities hit, all kinds of hits in some of the built-up areas. There were civilian casualties, too, and they just couldn't stop everything that was coming in. And on top of the damage, there was a huge logistical problem brewing. Israel was literally running low on interceptor missiles, period.
Running low.
Yeah, and they couldn't make or get replacements fast enough.
So Netanyahu suddenly talking peace wasn't really a change of heart about Iran, was it? It was more like a forced pause, a necessity.
That's exactly the analysis from the source. LT Cole Davis says he has very high confidence. This is just a tactical pause for Israel. The intention isn't lasting peace. It's to rebuild their capacity, get some more missiles, and figure out what they can do to defend themselves better. And the clear implication is they plan to launch another one as soon as they feel they're ready.
Okay, that paints a much clearer picture for Israel's side. But what about Iran? They were also taking hits, right? The source said they were getting significantly hit and damaged, their air defenses shredded by the Israeli side. So why were they keen on stopping? And, maybe even stranger, why claim victory?
Yeah, this really boils down to a fundamental difference in mindset. For Israel, success meant big goals. Destroying Iran's nuclear program, maybe regime change. They didn't achieve their aims, full stop. For Iran, the bar is totally different. For them, they have to survive. That's it.
Just survive.
Exactly. So their version of winning is simply just to not lose.
That reminds me of what Davis said about the Houthis, too. Like, they're still alive, so that's what you need to understand. Just enduring is the win.
Precisely. It's about living to fight another day. And look, the nuclear issue is always there with Iran. They want to maintain some capacity, whether it's reprocessing or the material they already have, like that 60% reprocessed uranium, which, the source notes is way closer to weapons grade than normally allowed.
And there's uncertainty about that capacity.
Huge uncertainty. Davis points out that Trump's claims of destroying it were questionable. He literally says, we don't even know where 400 pounds of this reprocessed uranium is. He talks about unknown sites, claims centrifuges were moved, maybe even sites we don't know anything about. So the danger that Iran could be secretly going to bomb now can't be taken off the table. It's still a risk.
So Iran maybe didn't want the fight, but they definitely wanted it to stop. And just managing to stop it, to survive it, counts as their version of victory.
Okay, so Israel needed a pause. Iran needed a pause. But it wasn't just them. The U.S. was involved too, and they also seemed to need this ceasefire.
Absolutely. The U.S. angle is crucial. Eltine Kell Davis makes a really interesting parallel to the Houthi situation in the Red Sea. The U.S. kind of realized that, they couldn't totally stop the attacks, but they would just keep spending $1 billion every week or two intercepting these missiles.
Right, just this massive, unsustainable cost.
Exactly, and the same logic applies here, but maybe on an even bigger scale. The U.S. is burning through a lot of interceptor missiles supporting Israel. This could be seriously depleting strategic reserves. The analysis suspects the U.S. might be already into our strategic reserves because usage is so high, and some are still going to Ukraine, remember.
So everyone involved, Israel, Iran, the U.S. kind of needed to catch their breath.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone benefits from this pause, at least for now. So what's the outlook then? Is this ceasefire actually going to hold? Or is it just, a temporary lull?
Well, the best guess from the source is that things will likely stay in a ceasefire condition for a period of time. Could be months, possibly years. Everyone's kind of licking their wounds and trying to figure some things out, reassessing.
There's always a but in the Middle East, isn't there?
Always. There's a big caveat. As Davis reminds us, you can't rule anything out because you get some hotheads acting some ways and taking some actions, and things could explode back up.
Hotheads, right.
It only takes one incident. So, yeah, this is the Middle East, so no guarantees at all. It's fragile.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, but staying in the region. Daniel Davis also spends time on the situation in Gaza. And it's pretty grim. He contrasts some official narratives with what's actually happening. Like, he mentions Trump's view that a Gaza ceasefire is close, maybe within the next week. Trump also claims the U.S. is sending a lot of money and a lot of food, though he admits some bad people steal it, and he complains other countries aren't helping out.
Right, but then what's really striking is how the analysis immediately pivots to challenge that narrative directly. The idea that nobody else is helping. It's just flat out wrong, according to the source. He says there are countries all over the planet screaming to help out. The real issue. The only reason there's been so limited food is because Israel has blocked it. That's the core problem identified.
So it's not that other countries aren't trying or that Hamas is taking it all. It's primarily access being denied.
Exactly. The U.S. only managed to get a very little bit of food in there only because of a great pressure campaign. It's not mostly Hamas stealing. It's because the Israelis have prevented it from getting in for the most part. And then there's this really pernicious, awful thing happening. The source states 400 Palestinians have been killed around the food aid hubs.
Wait, 400 killed?
Yeah.
At food distribution points. That's horrific.
It's shocking. And Davis gives specific examples. Like on a Sunday, 31 Palestinians were killed at open fire at the site of a food distribution center in Rafah. The very next day, Monday, another 3 Palestinians were killed by Israeli fire at the same site. Then Tuesday, 27 people were killed after Israeli forces opened fire again.
Oh, my God.
It's described as a continuing situation at these very limited food aid distribution points. Palestinians face this just unconscionable choice. Come and risk being shot to death getting food, or don't go there and starve to death. And Davis makes the point crystal clear. Hamas is not the one shooting 400 people to death.
And he notes Trump didn't mention those 400 deaths at all.
Not a word about it. And the implication drawn is stark. If he doesn't take action, that means he's fine with it. And that perception, particularly in Israel, allows these barbaric things, as the source calls them, to continue. It's a chilling assessment. And
the overall death toll mentioned, it's vastly different from official counts.
Yeah, the analysis references a Harvard study suggesting the real number isn't the often quoted 60,000 or 70,000. It's likely somewhere around 300 or more thousand that have been killed. And another study apparently suggests over 400,000 dead and missing. The scale is just staggering.
It really is. Okay, let's move to our final point, which is also incredibly significant, maybe even more broadly. This recent vote in the U.S. Senate about war powers. This seems like a fundamental shift with huge implications for American democracy, doesn't it?
It absolutely is. The analysis frames this as a major, major red flag. What happened was the Senate rejected a Democratic proposal. That proposal would have forced President Trump to go to Congress for approval for another military strike against Iran, and they voted it down. Okay,
so Congress basically said, no, Mr. President, you don't need our permission to attack Iran. What does that mean practically?
Well, Daniel Davis puts it in really stark terms.
Yeah.
It means there is no longer the balance of power in the United States. No longer 3 branches of government that are constrained and limited by the other branches. The war-making power has now been solidly placed in the pocket of the commander-in-chief. Doesn't matter who it is. Trump right now and any future president will have the same power. Congress, the legislative branch, has essentially denuded itself, given up its power, and said, we have submitted our power to the chief executive. The president is now basically a monarch in terms of war-making power.
A monarch. That's the exact opposite of what the Founding Fathers intended, right?
Yeah.
They saw the danger of one person having that kind of power, especially over war.
Precisely. They put those limits in the Constitution because they'd seen firsthand what happens when you get a man that has dictatorial powers, end quote. And the analysis stresses just how dangerous this is for the country down the line. It's described as potentially catastrophic for us at some point. The fear is that some future president, armed with this unchecked power, is one day going to get us into a war that we can't get out of, and it won't be a little one, it'll explode in our face.
Not a small conflict, but something huge.
Exactly. Lt. Col. Davis calls this a major siren and red flag, a truly dangerous move. Because, as he points out, once something like that happens, once you get that explosion in your face, you can't fix it then. Then it just becomes about how much blood's going to flow, how much damage and destruction is going to result on us.
So quite a deep dive today. We've really covered three massive areas. First, the surprising dynamics behind that Israel-Iran ceasefire, the exhaustion, the exposed weaknesses leading to that tactical pause. Then the really disturbing reality of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, starkly different from some official stories with the blockade and those horrific killings at food hubs. And finally, this huge, almost under-the-radar shift in U.S. war powers, effectively sidelining Congress and concentrating that power in the presidency.
Yeah, and I think the big takeaway from all of this analysis is just how crucial it is to look beyond the headlines, to really try and understand the underlying forces, the motivations, the real consequences, especially when the narratives we hear can be so different from the reality on the ground.
Absolutely. And Ld. Col. Davis's analysis, the source for our discussion today, ends with this sort of plea for sanity, for cooler heads to prevail somehow. It leaves you thinking. When we see these profound shifts, like the president gaining near monarchical war powers, or the kind of human suffering happening in Gaza, what responsibility do we have as citizens who are now informed about this? Does inaction make us complicit? What choices are we making, consciously or not? And, looking back, what will history say about how we handled moments like this? It's definitely something heavy to consider. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.